I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here we are. My name is Ryan, and I've been married to Lisa for 5 years. We had what I thought was a solid relationship. We met during college, fell in love, and had an uncomplicated life together. At least that's how I thought of it. Lisa always had a fiery personality, and while that could be a bit much at times, I loved that about her. She was ambitious, fiercely independent, and always had her own take on things. But over the last few months, something felt off. It started with the small things. Lisa began spending more time at work. Late nights were becoming a weekly occurrence. I get it. She's a jewelry designer and the holiday season was approaching. But the late nights quickly turned into weekends filled with excuses. While I was usually supportive of her career, my gut was telling me something wasn't right. I tried to brush those thoughts aside, convincing myself I was being paranoid. After all, we'd been through so much together, and she had always been open about her work. At least that's what I thought, but the nagging feeling would go away. I noticed she was being secretive with her phone, always putting it face down, and how she'd suddenly become protective over her messages. One evening, I decided to do a little snooping. I know it's not the most honorable thing to do, but people have their breaking points, right? I picked up her phone while she was in the shower. I scrolled through her texts, and lo and behold, there it was. A series of messages with someone named Jake. They started off innocent enough, just friendly banter, but eventually escalated to flirty remarks and alarmingly plans to meet. My heart sank. I waited for her to come out of the shower, and when she did, I confronted her. I didn't want to jump straight into accusations, but at that point I felt like I had no choice. "Who is Jake?" I asked, trying to keep my tone steady, but I could feel the anger bubbling up inside me. Lisa's reaction was something I'll never forget. Instead of shock or remorse, she laughed it off. "Jake? Oh, he's just a guy I met at a trade show. He's harmless, Ryan," she said, rolling her eyes, but I could see the guilt flashing across her face. Her story was full of holes. I pressed her more, and that's when the lies started spilling out. "We're just friends, you're overreacting." But I wasn't overreacting, I had the proof. I showed her the messages I found, and instead of confessing, she got defensive. "You shouldn't have gone through my phone. That's an invasion of privacy." I felt betrayed, not just because of the infidelity, but because she was turning this around on me. I had trusted her, and she was making me feel like the bad guy for wanting answers. I didn't know what to say or do. It was like someone had knocked the wind out of me. In those moments, my emotions swung wildly from anger to sadness. How could the woman I loved so deeply be so disloyal? I was furious, but I was also heartbroken. The woman I thought I married was starting to feel like a stranger. As I stood there, my mind raced through 1,000 thoughts. I wanted to scream, to throw things, but I couldn't. Instead, all I could do was stare at her, trying to understand how we got to this point. I felt like I was in a fog, witnessing our life unravel right in front of me. I realized I had a choice to make. I could either fight for our marriage, or I could walk away from this betrayal. The thought of starting over was terrifying, but the idea of living a lie was worse. It wasn't just about her infidelity. It was about my self-respect and how I would carry myself moving forward. I chose to confront the reality of what was happening, even if it meant facing the pain head-on. I had to figure out what I wanted and what I deserved. After that explosive confrontation, I found myself in a haze. I barely slept that night, tossing and turning as my thoughts spiraled. I replayed every moment with Lisa, every laugh, every inside joke, and every promise we made. It felt like I was living a lie. The vibrant memories of 3 vacations, spontaneous dinners, and quiet evenings together turned into bitter reminders of what I could lose. The next day, I tried to act as if nothing had changed. I went about my routine work, gym, and chores, while internally I was unraveling. I kept replaying the flirty texts in my head, wondering how long she'd been seeing this guy. Was it just a fling, or was she emotionally invested? I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. That evening, I decided to go back to our apartment where Lisa was already home. I could see she had been preparing for an event. She was dressed elegantly, her makeup flawless, and she had that sparkle in her eyes that drew me to her in the first place. But tonight, I was hyper-aware of a certain coldness between us. "Hey, you look great," I said, forcing a smile as I walked into the living room. "Where are you headed?" "Just a small gathering with some friends from work," she replied too casually. "You know how it is." The nonchalance in her voice hit me like a slap. "Right," I said, unable to keep the bitterness out of my tone. "How convenient for Jake, huh? You can just go have fun with your friends without a care in the world." Her eyes narrowed, and we both knew the conversation was heading somewhere dark. "Are we really going to do this right now?" She shot back, her frustration bubbling to the surface. I wanted to scream at her, to shake her and demand answers, but I stayed calm. "Do what, Lisa? Talk about how you've been lying to me, how you've been sneaking around behind my back." For a moment I thought I saw a flicker of guilt in her eyes, but it was quickly replaced by anger. "You're being ridiculous. You have no idea what you're talking about." I wanted to believe her, I truly did. But that night I felt something shift in me. The love I had for her began to morph into a cocktail of doubt and resentment. I knew I had to take action. I couldn't just sit back and let her betray me without a plan. I spent the next few days concocting a plan for revenge. I didn't want to hurt her in a malicious way, but I wanted her to understand what she had lost, what she was throwing away for some fleeting thrill. I decided to treat myself to something special, something that screamed success and self-worth. I had always wanted a Rolex, a symbol of achievement and sophistication. It wasn't just for showing off. It was a reminder that I was worth more than the betrayal she had dealt me. So I started researching. I found a dealer nearby, and after work one day I walked into the store. My heart raced as I discussed options with the salesperson, but I felt a surge of confidence. I could do this. I could reclaim my self-esteem. A few days later I had the watch. The moment I slipped it on my wrist, I felt powerful, like a new man. The gleam of the Rolex shone brightly, and I made sure to flaunt it. I wore it everywhere, to work, the gym, and even at home, just to see if she noticed. That Friday, Lisa invited me to the event she had been preparing for, and I decided to go, not because I wanted to support her, but because I wanted her to see me. I wanted her to realize what she stood to lose. As I walked into the venue, the glint of my watch caught the light, and I could see a couple of people glance my way. I felt the weight of their attention, and it felt good. Lisa was mingling, and I could tell she was surprised to see me. I walked up to her, and her jaw dropped slightly when she noticed the watch. "Wow, Ryan, that's nice. When did you get that?" "Just a little treat for myself," I replied, keeping my voice steady. Figured I deserved something special. I watched her carefully as the night progressed. She tried to brush it off, but I could see the jealousy creeping into her demeanor. I felt empowered by her reaction. As I socialized with some mutual friends, I noticed Lisa's mood shift. She was no longer the confident woman who had swept me off my feet. Instead, she was the one left feeling insecure. As the evening wore on, I realized the satisfaction I felt wasn't just from wearing a beautiful watch. It was from taking control of my life and my emotions. I was no longer going to be the victim in this story. If anything, I was going to write my own ending. But even as I felt a surge of confidence, I knew I had to confront her about Jake one last time. I wanted to be clear that I wouldn't tolerate her disloyalty. I had reclaimed my self-worth, but I knew I still had decisions to make about our relationship and how I wanted to move forward. After that night, the dynamic between Lisa and me shifted significantly. I could sense her unease and jealousy lingering like a thick fog. She tried to act normal, but every time she caught sight of my Rolex sparkling on my wrist, I could see her jaw tighten, her smile falter. It was a small victory, yet I knew it wasn't enough to erase the betrayal that had taken root in our lives. A week later, I decided it was time for a more direct confrontation. I wanted to give her one last chance to come clean about Jake, about everything. I wasn't looking for a dramatic showdown. I wanted honesty. So I planned a special dinner for us, a way to remind her of the good times we had shared before everything fell apart. I cooked her favorite meal, pasta with homemade sauce and garlic bread. As I set the table, I tried to push aside the anger and sadness I felt, focusing instead on creating a warm atmosphere. I lit candles and played soft music in the background. Maybe, just maybe, this would be the moment she realized how much she stood to lose. When Lisa walked in, the smell of the food seemed to surprise her. She paused, taking in the warm glow of the candles and the table set for two. "Wow, Ryan, this looks amazing," she said with a half-hearted smile. "Thanks," I replied, trying to keep my emotions in check. "I thought we could have a nice evening together." We sat down, and for a while it felt like old times. We laughed and reminisced about our first dates, the little inside jokes we had, and the fun trips we took. But the shadow of Jake loomed over us, and I knew I couldn't let it linger much longer. "Lisa, can we talk?" I said, my voice suddenly serious. She put her fork down, eyes darting to the side as if trying to avoid my gaze. "About what?" she asked, feigning innocence. "About you and Jake," I said, meeting her eyes firmly. "I need you to be honest with me. Are you seeing him? Is there something going on between you two?" Her response was a mixture of indignation and guilt. "Ryan, I told you, he's just a colleague, you're being paranoid," she exclaimed, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her. "Lisa, I found the texts. I know there's more to it than what you're saying," I pressed, my heart racing. "Just tell me the truth, I deserve that much." She shifted uncomfortably in her seat, and for a moment I thought she might finally confess. But instead she leaned back, crossing her arms defiantly. "You're just trying to manipulate me. You think because you bought that watch you can control how I feel." I felt a rush of anger. "This isn't about the watch, this is about trust and respect. You may think I'm trying to control you, but I'm just trying to understand what's happening in our marriage." Her defenses crumbled slightly, and I could see the internal struggle on her face. "Fine, I've talked to him, but it's nothing serious. It was just a moment. I didn't mean for it to go this far." "Then why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice softer now. "Why keep it a secret? You know how much I value honesty. We could have worked through it if you had just been upfront." She looked down, her bravado fading. "I was scared. I didn't want to hurt you, but I didn't think it was that big of a deal." "It is a big deal, Lisa. You can't just brush it off because you think it's trivial. You chose to betray my trust, and that's not something we can ignore." Tears welled in her eyes, and for a moment I thought she might finally understand the gravity of her actions. "I'm sorry, Ryan, I really am. I never wanted to hurt you. I just got caught up in the excitement of it all." "Excitement? You think that's an excuse?" I shot back, feeling a mix of anger and sadness wash over me. "You're better than this." She wiped her eyes, and in that moment I saw the vulnerability I had longed to see. "I don't know what's wrong with me. I guess I thought I could balance it all without hurting anyone, but I didn't think about how it would affect you." As we sat there in silence, I realized that this wasn't just about her infidelity. It was about our relationship and the cracks that had formed beneath the surface. I didn't want to fight. I wanted to rebuild, but I knew it would take more than just apologies. "Lisa, I need time to think. We need to figure out if we can move past this. I don't want to rush into decisions," I said, feeling the weight of my words. "Okay," she replied, her voice barely a whisper. "I understand." That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about what I wanted. Part of me wanted to walk away from the mess and reclaim my life, while another part still longed for the connection we once had. I knew I needed to set boundaries to protect myself from further pain, but I was also aware that love could be complicated, sometimes messy. The Rolex on my wrist felt heavy. It was a reminder of both my strength and my vulnerability. I knew I had to make some hard choices moving forward, ones that would define the future of our marriage, whether I wanted to fight for it or let it go. Days that followed our confrontation were a whirlwind of emotions. Lisa and I were living in the same apartment, but it felt like we were worlds apart. I wanted to pull her close and work through everything, but every time I looked at her, I saw the shadows of betrayal. The trust that had once been a foundation between us was now a fragile glass structure, ready to shatter at any moment. I threw myself into work, using it as a distraction. I buried myself in projects, staying late and immersing myself in deadlines. At least there I felt some semblance of control. But even as I focused on my job, my mind often wandered back to Lisa. I couldn't shake the memories of our happy moments, nor could I forget the sting of her lies. One evening I returned home after a long day, and Lisa was sitting at the kitchen table, an untouched plate of food in front of her. "Hey," she said, her voice low. "I've been thinking." "About what?" I asked, my guard still up. "About us, about what happened. I know I messed up," she admitted, picking at her plate. "I Want to fix this, Ryan? I really do. I let out a sigh, unsure of how to respond. It's not that simple, Lisa. You broke my trust. I need to know that you're committed to this and that you understand the weight of your actions. I do. I've been talking to a therapist and I want to understand why I made those choices, she said, her eyes pleading. I don't want to lose you. Now I felt a flicker of hope. Therapy was a step in the right direction, and it showed that she was willing to put in the effort. But the question remained, could we truly rebuild what had been broken? Okay, I said slowly. If you're serious about this, I'm willing to give it a try, but it's going to take time and it's going to be hard. I'm ready for it, she insisted, her tone firm. I don't want to throw away what we have. As the days turned into weeks, Lisa and I began to navigate the rocky terrain of our relationship. She went to therapy regularly and I could see the changes in her. She was more open and transparent, sharing her thoughts and feelings with me. We started having deep conversations about trust, boundaries, and what we both wanted moving forward. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. I needed more than just words. I needed actions. So I decided to be proactive. I initiated couples therapy, believing it would help us both address the underlying issues in our marriage. On the day of our first session, I felt a mix of anxiety and hope. Sitting on the couch in the therapist's office, I glanced at Lisa. She looked nervous, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. Why don't we start by talking about what brought you both here? The therapist asked gently. I took a deep breath, ready to share. Well, Lisa cheated on me with a coworker. It's been hard for both of us and we want to understand how to move forward. Lisa chimed in. I never meant to hurt him. I got caught up in things and I realized how stupid it was. I want to be better. The therapist nodded, encouraging us to dig deeper. As we discussed our feelings, I watched as Lisa became more vulnerable. She spoke about her fears and insecurities, about how she felt overwhelmed by her career and the pressure she placed on herself. I could see the guilt etched across her face, and it struck a chord within me. I had often viewed her infidelity as a personal betrayal, but as she opened up, I began to see the larger picture. We both had our struggles, and perhaps her actions were a cry for help, a misguided attempt to fill a void she felt. Throughout our sessions, we learned to communicate better and express our needs. I shared my feelings of betrayal and how her actions had affected me, while she worked to understand her motivations. It was a gradual process, one filled with tears and difficult discussions, but we were both committed to making it work. As the weeks passed, there were still dark days. I'd catch myself doubting her commitment, replaying old memories that caused me pain. But I also began to notice the changes in our day-to-day life. Lisa was making an effort to include me in her world, introducing me to her colleagues, and making it clear that she wanted to rebuild our trust. Despite the progress, there was still a lingering factor, Jake. I had no doubt that she had cut ties with him, but I couldn't shake the fear that he would always be a ghost in our relationship. So I made the decision to confront that fear head-on. One evening after dinner, I brought it up. Lisa, I need to know that Jake is completely out of the picture. I can't move forward if I feel like he's still lurking in the shadows. I promise he's out of my life for good, she replied. I blocked him on everything and I'm focused on us. I just need you to trust me again. It was hard to fully trust her in that moment, but I realized that rebuilding trust was a two-way street. I had to be willing to let go of the past as much as she had to prove her commitment. Okay, I'll try, I said, my voice wavering. With each passing day, the wounds began to heal, though I knew it would take time to fully recover. I wore my Rolex as a reminder of my strength and the journey we were on together. It wasn't just a symbol of material success. It was a testament to my resilience, my ability to rise above the pain. As we continued our therapy, I began to feel a shift in my heart. Maybe we could find our way back to each other after all. It wasn't a linear path, but it was a journey worth taking. I could see glimmers of the love we once shared, and for the first time in a while, I felt hope. But I also knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. I had to remain vigilant, committed to the process, while being honest with myself about my feelings. If I wanted this marriage to thrive, I needed to be part of the solution, not just a bystander watching our love story unfold. As the days turned into weeks, Lisa and I continued navigating our relationship with cautious optimism. Our therapy sessions became a safe space where we could lay bare our feelings and explore the intricacies of our marriage. I could feel the tension between us easing, but the specter of Lisa's infidelity always loomed in the background. One evening, after a particularly productive session, I had a moment of clarity. I realized that while I was working hard to rebuild our relationship, I hadn't taken the time to reflect on my own feelings and needs. I needed to ensure that I was also nurturing myself through this tumultuous journey. So, I began to set aside time for myself, taking up hobbies that had fallen by the wayside. I rediscovered my love for running, using it as an outlet for my emotions. Each mile I ran allowed me to process my thoughts and frustrations, and I found solace in the rhythm of my footsteps against the pavement. One Saturday morning, I signed up for a local 5K race. It was a small event, but it felt like a fresh start, a way to reclaim my sense of self. As I crossed the finish line, a wave of exhilaration washed over me. I had done something for myself, something that reminded me of my strength and resilience outside of my relationship with Lisa. That evening, I decided to share my accomplishment with her. I walked into the apartment, sweaty but elated, and found Lisa in the living room, flipping through a magazine. "You won't believe what I just did," I exclaimed, the pride evident in my voice. She looked up, her eyes lighting up with curiosity. "What? Tell me." "I just finished a 5K, I said, unable to contain my smile. "It felt amazing. I've been running again and it's really helped clear my head." Lisa's face broke into a genuine smile. "That's awesome, Ryan. I'm so proud of you." Her excitement felt genuine, but as I watched her, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of jealousy that she hadn't fully immersed herself in my world during this time. "Thanks, you should join me next time," I suggested, hoping to bridge the gap between us. It could be a fun way to spend time together. Her expression shifted slightly and I sensed hesitation. "I don't know, running isn't really my thing." I felt a pang of frustration. "It doesn't have to be a competition, Lisa. It's just about being active and enjoying each other's company." "I get it, but I'm just not into it like you are," she replied defensively. "Can't I have my own interests?" I knew I had to tread carefully. "Of course you can. But I want us to find common ground too. We need to be a team again." She sighed, looking away as if searching for the right words. "You're right. I've been so focused on fixing my mistakes that I haven't thought about what we can do together." That night, we talked for hours, delving into our aspirations, fears, and how we could bridge our individual lives with our shared one. It felt like a turning point, a moment where we were actively choosing to invest in each other. Over the next few weeks, we tried to incorporate more activities together. We signed up for a painting class, explored new restaurants, and even attempted to cook together. Each new endeavor was a learning experience, a way to reconnect and rebuild our bond. However, the ghosts of the past were hard to shake entirely. One evening, while we were cooking dinner, I caught Lisa staring off into space, lost in thought. "What's going on?" I asked, sensing the weight behind her silence. "I was just thinking about Jake," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know I said I cut ties, but sometimes I wonder if he's doing okay or if I hurt him." I felt a storm of emotions rise within me. "Why are you still thinking about him?" I asked, frustration creeping into my voice. "He's the last person you should be worried about." "I know, but it was a complicated situation," she pleaded. "I just wish I could have handled things differently." "Lisa, it's over. You need to focus on us. We can't keep rehashing this," I said, trying to remain calm. "I'm trying to forgive you, but you need to let go of the past too." "I'm trying, I really am," she said, tears starting to form in her eyes. "But it's hard to forget someone who was a part of my life, even if it was a mistake. I just want to make sure I never make the same mistakes again." Her vulnerability tugged at my heart. I kept wanting to push for clarity, yet I realized she was also on her journey of healing. "I guess we both have to learn how to move forward together," I said, softening my tone. "I want to work on this. I want to be a better partner for you," she replied, her sincerity touching me. Our discussions continued to fluctuate between hope and fear, joy and pain. I learned to express my concerns without letting anger take the wheel, and she began to communicate her fears instead of burying them. But the true test came when Lisa received a message from Jake. She showed it to me, her hands trembling as she opened her phone. "I don't know what to do," she said, panic in her eyes. "He texted me out of the blue. It's just a casual message, but I'm scared." I took a deep breath, my heart racing. "What does it say?" "It's just him catching up, asking how I've been. He doesn't know about us," she replied, her voice shaky. "Did you respond?" I asked, my gut churning. "No, I haven't. I wanted to show you first," she said, her honesty shining through. "Okay," I said, trying to remain calm. "But we need to set clear boundaries. You can't engage with him." "I know," she exclaimed, her frustration bubbling to the surface. "I don't want to go back to that. I want to be with you, Ryan, but I also don't want to be rude." I nodded, understanding her dilemma. "Just remember what you stand to lose. You've worked hard to regain my trust, and I won't let it go easily." With that, she took a deep breath and responded, letting him know she didn't want to continue any communication. As she hit send, I felt a mixture of relief and anxiety wash over me. This was a pivotal moment. Her choice to sever ties with the past solidified our commitment to rebuilding our relationship. "See, you're taking control," I said, offering her a reassuring smile. "And that's a step in the right direction." We embraced, feeling the weight of the moment settle between us. It was a reminder that while the road ahead might be filled with challenges, we were both willing to fight for our love. I was determined to let go of my insecurities and trust Lisa to follow through on her promises, even as we continued to navigate the complexities of our relationship together. As the weeks turned into months, our journey together began to take on new life. After Lisa sent her message to Jake, we experienced a shift in our relationship. The tension that had once hung over us felt like it had finally begun to dissipate. We were still healing, but we were doing it together, and I could feel the foundations of our relationship strengthening. Our time in therapy continued to be pivotal. Each session was a chance to check in, share our progress, and work through lingering issues. Lisa's commitment to being transparent was evident, and I found comfort in the way she engaged with the process. I also took responsibility for my own feelings, ensuring I communicated openly when doubts crept in. One evening, after a particularly enlightening session, I came home feeling hopeful. I noticed Lisa was already in the kitchen prepping dinner. "Hey, how was your day?" I asked, wrapping my arms around her waist from behind. "It was good. I got that promotion I was working towards," she announced, her voice bubbling with excitement. I stepped back, my eyes widening in disbelief. "Really? That's amazing, Lisa. You deserve it." I pulled her into a hug, feeling the warmth of her victory wash over both of us. "Thanks, I feel like everything finally coming together," she said, her eyes sparkling with joy. "I'm so proud of you," I said, genuinely excited for her. It felt like a turning point, not just for her, but for us as a couple. She was thriving professionally, and I could see how much it meant to her to have my support. But as we celebrated, I couldn't shake the feeling that we still had some unresolved issues to address. The specter of Jake was fading, but I knew we needed to discuss our future. That weekend, we took a trip to the mountains. It was a chance to reconnect in a beautiful setting, away from the chaos of our daily lives. As we hiked along the trails, the breathtaking views reminded me of the beauty of starting anew. "Ryan," Lisa said, pausing to catch her breath and take in the landscape, "I've been thinking a lot about our future. I want to make sure we're on the same page." I nodded, appreciating her willingness to have the conversation. "I want that too. I've thought about what I want moving forward, and I realize I'm no longer the person I was before all this happened. I've learned a lot about myself, my needs, and what I want in a relationship." She looked at me, her expression earnest. "I feel the same way. I don't want to repeat my mistakes, and I want to ensure we're both committed to this. I love you, Ryan, and I don't want to take that for granted." "I love you too, Lisa," I said, feeling the warmth of her words wash over me. "But we need to set some boundaries. I want us to keep communicating openly about our feelings and needs. I want to feel secure in our relationship." "Absolutely," she agreed, her voice steady. "I want us to be partners in every sense of the word. I'm committed to making this work." As we stood there, surrounded by the beauty of nature, I felt a renewed sense of hope. We were both willing to fight for what we had, to rebuild our love on a foundation of trust and understanding. When we returned home, things continued to evolve. Lisa kept excelling at her job, and we celebrated her successes together. We started taking weekend trips, exploring new places and creating memories that helped reinforce the bond between us. Each moment spent together became a reminder that we could rise above the past. One night, as we cuddled on the couch watching a movie, Lisa turned to me with a serious expression. "I want to make a promise to you," she said, her voice soft. "I promise to always be honest with you, no matter how difficult it may be. I want you to know that I will never take your love for granted again." I smiled, feeling warmth spread through my chest. "And I promise to work on myself and keep my lines of communication open. We both deserve to feel secure in this relationship." As we sealed our promises with a kiss, I realized that we had both grown tremendously through this experience. While the scars of infidelity would always be a part of our story, they no longer defined us. Instead, they became a testament to our resilience and our determination to build something stronger together. Months later, during a quiet evening at home, I found myself looking at my Rolex. It had become a symbol of my journey, a reminder of my strength and the choices I had made to reclaim my life. It wasn't just a watch, it was a reflection of how far I had come. I glanced over at Lisa, who was laughing at something on TV. In that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. We had survived the storm, and while the road ahead would still have its challenges, I had faith in us. Together, we began to dream of the future, of building a life filled with love, respect, and adventure. The pain of betrayal was fading, replaced by a renewed connection. We were ready to embrace the next chapter of our lives, armed with the lessons we had learned along the way. As I sat there, holding Lisa's hand, I knew that love could be complicated, but it could also be transformative. And as long as we were committed to one another, I believed we would navigate our challenges together, stronger than ever before.